Hello, my name is Sandra Torres, and I will be talking more about what a developing country is, and I will be getting more into Mexico's country. So, what is a developing country? A developing country has a low standard of living and lacks a strong industrial base. Without a strong industrial base, these countries begin to face many challenges, including poverty, a very high employment rate, and being limited to many resources and opportunities, which affects their daily lives. I have chosen Mexico as my developing country since I do have family, and my family as well has visited and has seen the living conditions people live over there in comparison to Mexico's living conditions to the United States. The economic system that Mexico functions under is mixed economy. This economic system is based on agriculture, manufacturing, and extraction of natural gases and petroleum. Also, many lands are used to plant necessary crops such as corn, wheat, rice, beans, and many other crops. This system is based on creating one's properties and decisions. This goal is to help grow the economy by the lack of having the government's guidance. These important services maintain a stable and fair system because they are able to have the government's input and have a fair system. One of the areas that I will be examining is poverty and inequality. The economic system that Mexico functions under is a mixed economy. As it is seen often, Mexico's country is often living in poverty and struggle financially. Wealth inequality is at a very high rate in Mexico, making it difficult for many families to provide. Mexico is one of the 14 richest countries. Corruption has affected about half of the population living there. 48% of the state schools have no access to sewage. 31% have no access to purified water, and 12.8% have no bathrooms. And 11.2% have no access to electricity. The second area I will be examining is the access to education and healthcare. Education is an important part of improving the economy. However, in Mexico, there is a lack of resources and teachers and infrastructure, making it difficult for students to have a proper learning environment. For example, 43.7% of people living in Mexico have not completed 1 year of school. 50.7% have completed 6 years or less of school, and 5.6% continued their education beyond 6 years of school. This represents the lack of education there, which has led to not having enough healthcare professionals to assist families, even living in rural areas. There are currently many issues in Mexico occurring that area that I have chosen to research poverty and inequality. Inequality continues to be a tremendous issue in Mexico, although it has been improved in some aspects. Poverty and inequality has been a continuous issue despite Mexico's growth economy over the years. In 2020, nearly 44% of Mexico's population is living in poverty, affecting many factors in their lives, such as having access to education and health. In 2020, rural areas in southern states are also experiencing extremely high poverty rates by 66.4% and 75.5%. Also, 52% of the population are considered poor based on their income. And in 2016 to 2020, the poorest income of 40% grew by 0.7%. This graph represents the increase of poverty over the years. Some of the key challenges and opportunities in Mexico is the low wages, the low education and employment rates. There are many other challenges they face. However, these challenges are most seen from all families. Obtaining a proper education for students is very difficult since children aren't being provided with the resources needed, and there is not sufficient teachers who have the ability to provide the support to help them learn. Because of the low wages, families are not able to provide for their children's learning utilities, also making it a barrier for them to obtain a proper education. And also, corruption has also been a barrier for families to obtain an education, since they are being extracted from their essential resources, such as healthcare. Some of the opportunities and potential drivers of growth are having a higher education by having programs such as the Enseña por Mexico, which is a program that was founded in 2013 and has improved educational attainment no matter their economic level, and has taught many young children in the country through a leadership and educational program. Over the years, this program has helped more than 60,000 children, which will continue to create opportunities and a future career for these students. Globalization has impacted Mexico positively and negatively in many aspects, such as trade, investment, and employment. Although these areas have caused economic growth and prosperity, challenges have also been present, making it difficult for the economy to overcome poverty and income inequality. One positive area that globalization impacted Mexico is loosening trade restriction, reducing tariffs, and signing the North American Free Trade Agreement. The economic growth has arisen in Mexican businesses. However, in southern Mexico, this has also affected many areas negatively, such as farmers. Due to the North American free trade, farmers have not been able to compete with U.S. grown crops in Mexican markets, resulting in their income decreasing and poverty and forced migration. The second area I have chosen to research is the accessibility of education and healthcare. The lack of education is a very serious issue that many are aware of, but continue to be a problem which is not only affecting children's futures but also the economy. The lack of education has also been a continuous issue that is being overlooked and not taken into consideration. Although Mexico might have programs to help students, Mexico still has one of the worst educational outcomes and school dropout rates in the world. According to Life USA, it states that the record of graduation rates in 2022 is only 45%. The rates of young adults that have not had the ability to obtain a high school diploma have dropped to 11% within the years of 2016 to 2013. Many factors have influenced people to not register, such as poverty, since they are being introduced to the workforce at a very early age instead of prioritizing the education. 5.2 million students in Mexico have not registered due to the circumstances they are living in, which has affected 43.9% of the population in Mexico. And this graph in red, it shows that Mexicans' dropout rates is increasing very, very high over the years. Some of the key challenges and opportunities for this area is the lack of education. For example, one significant challenge is the gender inequality when it comes to women. In rural areas, women have a lower chance of obtaining an education due to early marriages, pregnancies, and being limited to any job opportunity they may have. Although it is common for these areas, there are still higher crime rates, making it more dangerous and difficult for people to have access to these opportunities. There is also many opportunities that are available to help these unfortunate areas, such as Project Amigo, which is a non-profit organization to help out students that live in these rural areas to obtain an opportunity to create a future for themselves. There are many unique opportunities that many schools have been provided with. For example, the National Educational Program has been reorganized to help out many students by having access to many resources. For example, they are now available to they now have access to free nationally distributed textbooks published for students to have access to. Many writing and editing teachers' guides have also been a new way for children to learn and have guidance when understanding new things, which will continue to lead them into many opportunities for their future. As the globalization continues to evolve, the lack of education is changing in Mexico by many ways. Mexico's new ideas of international standards have created ways for children to succeed by becoming bilingual, developing essential life and learning skills and digital tools. This change will open many opportunities for children, but can also create an unfair accessibility to certain living areas. In many areas, children who live in rural areas are those who have unequal access to quality education compared to those who live in towns. Children who receive a higher quality education tend to acquire a higher income, whereas children in rural areas are limited from these educational resources. And this is my works cited page. Overall, researching on Mexico's reality as a developing country, I was able to understand many of the theoretical concepts that I learned in class, such as the economic development, social inequality, and the globalization of this country. I had the opportunity to understand how complex the development is for each country, which enhances my skills of using my critical thinking when collecting the data to analyze different aspects of Mexico's economy. As I began this project, I was not aware of many challenges that Mexico does face. Although I did see the living conditions they lived in, I was now more aware of poverty, migration, and crime that occurs in this country. Researching about the complexity of this country has not changed my perspective and has taught me to not rely on what I see on social media. Some aspects I did find very interesting during this project was how I was able to learn about my culture and how there is indigenous communities or certain areas where there is economic growth. With this project, I was able to connect with what I was engaging with, since I was able to relate to this country because of my parents growing up there. Starting this project, I felt slightly overwhelmed with the amount of information being presented, which if I were to do this again, I would ensure I would focus earlier to understand and find the exact information I need to support these areas that I will be researching about. These skills I learned throughout this project could help me in my future academic by understanding the important information that I need, such as topics such as global studies, development, and non-profit roles. And overall, this was my project in the project I researched, which was the developing country of Mexico. Thank you.